Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, where everything you're about to hear and see has been done in one take. I'm your host, the One Take Man. Today's video closes out the second Courage the Cowardly Dog month with a look at how I would script, plot, design, whatever have you, a Courage the Cowardly Dog video game. The basic idea behind this is basically taking the idea of Ball of Revenge and improving upon it. Looking at the central conceit and wondering what would it actually take to make a villain team up actually work. A lot of people have talked about the flaws of that episode being, how could being why did Eustace decide that the events of that episode or the beginning of that episode really are that bad that he would want to that he would want to gather an all-star villain team, and also how it is that Eustace was able to contact those villains in particular, or why those villains would work together. Why those villains would work together is perhaps the only criticism I think that actually works. If you consider the parameters of Courage the Cowardly Dog as kind of a as not just as a horror comedy, but as a but also through the lens of it being more of an absurdist comedy that often does things out of left field because they're funny. My biggest problem with the with the way the episode carries out its central premise is that it pretty much wastes its villains. It doesn't really allow them any wiggle room to actually showcase what it is that makes them distinctive aside from their design. And for that reason, I thought I would take this episode, really take everything off of it aside from its skeleton, and then repackage the idea of a villain team up story in such a way as to get the best possible result. And I thought a video game would be the best way to do that because, well, I don't know. I'm basically going by the Ghostbusters video game logic, where the game is actually Ghostbusters free. So I'm basically thinking that Courage the Cowardly Dog would be either maybe not the Courage the Cowardly Dog video game, but somewhere in between would be the equivalent of a movie, but rather somewhere in between a movie and a full season. And as such, I started to wonder what would it take to make that happen, and what villains could actually work, because there have to be villains who are technically still active and could still have a grudge against Courage. There are a few names I've come up with, but also a few that I've had to cut for reasons that'll become clear soon enough. The first two that I want to mention that I've cut, like right from the get-go, are first of all Cats, who's definitely going to be the most obvious missing link here. By the way, all of these images are from the fandom wiki, as with all the videos of this month. So, Cats is the first notable absence. The second notable absence is LeQuack. It's not because these guys are bad villains. They are actually among the best of this series, and it's not because they were in Ball of Revenge. I actually have two villains from Ball of Revenge who will show up in my presentation of what I think this video game should be. Rather, they are out of this. They are not mentioned here because they are on the verge of being overexposed. Like, they've already had around an episode per season, so really giving them more attention doesn't exactly suit them. Doesn't exactly make them. That doesn't really help elevate their stock. And also, so yeah, for that reason, I want them to play. If I am to, if they are to show up in supplementary material, it will not be within this video game. There, however, I still need a main villain for this video game. Who would that be? Well, my suggestion for that is uh, perhaps somewhat out of left field, but it is also someone who has been, who has shown up in more or less every season, and uh, has had an active part in actually antagonizing Courage, leading to some at times quite quite memorable and quite interesting episodes. Namely, D Lung. Yeah, D Lung is very much a casual evil. Like he is like he's just self-conceited and arrogant, and he is constantly certain that he is better than everyone. And I think that make for a very I think that makes for an effective villain, or that is one of the things that would make him an effective villain for this for this game. The second one is that he is low-key actually quite effective as a villain because he has a uh, kind of a mad scientist thing going where he where he's able to make potions that change people that change that transform people into animals. He is also kind of a kind of a gadgeteer inventor where he is able to take a rocket launcher and use it to launch a stick and Courage, and also he's able to build like freaking mecha Courage. So yeah, there is some level of machinery expertise there. There is also some level of magic expertise present with him, given that he is able to given that he is able to help his his aunt, the evil empress, actually actually maintain her power and her hold over the over China. So I think if he were to actually apply himself and actually showcase what it is that makes him better than everyone else, that would make for that would make him a more that would make him a pretty good a pretty good main villain for this game. What would his goal be? Well, I would argue that he is gathering an army in order to seize his birthright and actually become the new emperor of China. Before he can, or at least insofar as the setting itself establishes that's a thing. And by that I mean Courage's setting. Before he can actually do that, however, he has to test his generals, and he decides to test them by taking over nowhere uh, and giving them an opportunity to get revenge on Courage. So yeah, that pretty much that very much sets the parameters of this game. We're looking for villains who can still pose a threat, are still active, yeah, which is basically the same thing, and who have a grudge against Courage, who would want to take revenge beyond just the promise of power, because I'm pretty sure D Long would sniff that out and be like and realize that those guys are a threat to him, or he might still keep them around for his own for his own purposes. Still, that wouldn't qualify Cats and Quack because because of reasons. Maybe because you would instantly sniff them out. Maybe because he would or maybe because he wouldn't necessarily play well with them. That, however, begs the question of who would he seek out? As far as given that as far as has been established, he doesn't really have any established relationship to any of the other villains. I have a well. I was thinking about who could, when looking through the list of villains after I've established that D Long would be the would be the main threat or would be the main villain and would perhaps seek to expand his use of his use of both his technology mastery and his magic mastery, I thought maybe looking into his magic mastery would provide an answer. Because I don't know how familiar you are with Eastern mysticism, but it is themed, to some extent at least, around five natural elements. The Platonic four: air, earth, fire, and water, with a fifth one, lightning, coming into it. So I thought I'd look through the villains who are eligible as per the criteria that I've previously aligned, and look at those who fit well within these slots. It could be argued that you could also have some villains for that represent yin and yang, but I decided against that. I think just having D Lung and then the following five should suffice for at least for this game. Starting off representing Earth, we've got Big Bayou. This will perhaps be somewhat of a controversial inclusion because a bayou is more of an aquiferous environment rather than really more earthbound one or earth-based one. However, if you look at this character, Big Bayou is mostly based upon southern plantation owners, which I would much more closely associate with Earth than with any other of these five elements. Also, the magic he practices is a form of voodoo, which again is more, I think, can more closely be affiliated to to Earth than to any other element. And also, I think his use of magic would make him would make for an interesting starting villain, and it also helps and it also works a little bit better with the theme of mysticism. After Earth, we get Lightning, and the villain that I've chosen to represent Lightning would be Doc Gerbil. Yeah, it's kind of this one is perhaps a little bit more controversial because Doc Gerbil's episode actually hints that he actually has a thing against humans in general. So where he would generally see them as oppressors and be opposed to working with one. However, he is absolutely I think he is the best fit of all available options, and he has a lot of potential of being kind of like this mad scientist figure who would eventually plot to overturn his his boss, his leader, in order to make him one of his test subjects. Also, think about the potential that having a mad scientist within this game would would actually allow in terms of not necessarily crazy gameplay, but more or less crazy designs and crazy action scenes. So yeah, that's why Doc Gerbil is here. Next up, in terms of elements, is Air, and the villain I've chosen for Air is Conway, the Contaminationist. He is also a pilot, so it fits. it fits surprisingly well, and it helps add another dimension to the game itself, where Courage not only has to fight the villain and whatever smaller enemies that villain can muster, but also the environment itself, and how exactly he can work around that would make for a pretty interesting setup. Next up, after Air, we've got Fire, and the villain I've chosen for Fire is Cajun Fox. Admittedly, it's probably the loosest fit on this list, And then again, keep in mind he is a culinary villain, which is a surprisingly common theme when you actually look through the Courage the Cowardly Dog villains. So yeah, him being able to use fire or warmth in general is uh, is not that big of a stretch, and there are things he you know could work with that. Also, aside from him being a culinary villain within within his own episode, he used a whole bunch of different methods and tactics in order to get his way. Most of these being being like vehicle based. I like he's also a pilot. Mm, he uses cars, he uses bulldozers. So there's plenty of machinery that he can use, and I think bringing some of that machinery and bringing some of that heat as a weapon against courage would be quite interesting. Last but not least of the five elements, we've got water, and while there are quite a few quite a few fitting antagonists that are water themed, the best choice for me is the Black Puddle Queen, like obligatory. uh, she has a lot of potential in terms of where it is that she could in terms of where it is that she could appear, in terms of how she could appear, and in terms of how she could attack courage not just physically but also psychologically. While she generally works alone, giving her some minions that would help and that would help enhance her her offensive potential would would make her a more formidable threat, and would make it would make the game in general, or at least her portion of it, a little bit more memorable and a little bit more challenging. So yeah, overall, I very much think she is the most fitting choice to to fit in to get into this slot, and also generally be showcased uh, as a villain within this show. And now that we've gotten the elements out of the way, it's time we go into the final boss. And the final boss, I don't really want it to be. I don't really want D Lung to be the final boss, because while the premise of the game requires he amass power or influence at least, I don't really see him as a physical threat. I don't think he would really risk getting into a physical threat into a physical fight with courage, unless the deck is very heavily stacked in his favor. So he would seek for someone else to to fight courage if all of his elemental themed generals don't actually fit the bill. Who could serve that role? Well, in my opinion, there is only one obvious answer, and that is Eustace. Yeah, obviously. And it won't be like, baseline Eustace, who just looks like this and has his mask and maybe his shotgun, but rather some kind of empowered Eustace. Like, imagine him wearing a battle suit that the Lung would have fashioned for him. Why would Eustace decide to fight him? To fight courage in this manner? Well, aside from the fact that he dislikes courage quite heavily, there is also another thing to note is that he is quite greedy. So D Lung could offer him like a position as either a general or an advisor, under the condition that he manages to defeat courage, which I am pretty sure he would accept, even if Muriel would oppose that. How would D Lung get in touch with Eustace in order to first make that happen? Well, quite obvious. It's in the standard motivation for courage. he kidnaps both Eustace. D-Long would kidnap both Eustace and Muriel, and then challenge Courage to, come in and save them, and therefore get himself in the on the path to where he would have to fight all of his generals. And then also his perhaps newest addition to that to that particular roster, namely Eustace himself. So yeah, whether or not there will be a showdown with D-Long himself, I actually have something else for him in mind. But before I delve into that, I first want to look into the allies that Courage would have, because obviously this would be a pretty big occasion, and aside from the villains I've already spelled out, there is plenty of potential for new antagonizing figures as well as for returning ones. For example, the dancing rats, the evil plants, weremoles, because keep in mind there is an entire species of them, and yeah, that that sort of thing. So he could face off against a lot of potential enemies, and therefore he also needs at least some allies. So who would fulfill that role as an ally? There are a few options. I could go for, and I think these options more or less would assist each other. First one is the computer, obviously. While they don't see eye to eye, the computer's contributions are often invaluable when it comes to Courage's success, and being able to overcome a lot of the villains and threats that he has actually confronted. And their dynamic, I think, would be very similar to the one that Shell and GLaDOS have in Portal 2, where the computer would constantly tease and offer some more playful and less playful insults, and Courage just kind of sits there and sulks. However, he would also offer some more helpful insights, because that is what he needs to do. That is what is called he is called to do. And it could also serve a gameplay purpose, because I'm thinking of aside from a life bar, I'm also thinking that Courage could have a sanity bar within this game, or a fear bar, and when that's full, he has to go in a corner and unload that fear, at least somewhat. That fear could be negated either by him gaining some collectibles, or by the computer taunting him, spurring him on to persist, to continue. The next ally, and the one that I think is going to compete with the computer in terms of actual screen time or gameplay time, would be Shirley. Yeah, this might be a less popular opinion, given Shirley is typically considered a villain. However, if you look at her appearances and her the dynamic she has with Courage and the Bag family in general, you'll realize that she's not actually a villain, at least not in the typical sense. She doesn't go out looking for trouble, but if trouble finds her, she is more than willing, more than eager to fight back, even if that sometimes means that innocents get caught in the crossfire. Overall, still, I think her contributions to the story are more heroic rather than villainous. And why would she show up here? Well, keep in mind, I mentioned that this game would lean on ancient mysticism. It is likely she would be able to tell that there is something rotten in nowhere, something big, something dangerous, and she might want to step in order to contain the threat. But obviously she would need courage in order to overcome the the more physical dimensions and actually fight the villains. She could discover that D-Lung is using some kind of mystical empowerment to actually in order to actually get them to in order to get them to the point where they are capable of carrying out his orders as his generals. And and I think she would be able to take that that mystical empowerment and then turn it against D-Lung, with that being how it is that he finally ends up being defeated. So even though Courage would be doing most of the work, I still kind of want her to give the killing blow. It would not be unearned, because she would still be supporting him all throughout, and I think that role would really suit her. And I think the idea of having her and the computer collaborate in this instance would be quite welcome. But aside from these characters who are more like the guy in the chair or the guy in the earpiece, who give an informational advantage to Courage, I think she should also have some help, boots on the ground, so to speak. And there are two figures I have in mind for that. The first among them is Charlie the Mouse, who who Courage has called upon in various instances, or who has helped him out in various instances. So, and having him around, maybe he's a resident of nowhere who has been able to escape the influence of D-Lung and his forces, and wants to help Courage clear his city. The second one I'm thinking of is Bigfoot. His real name is Theodore, and he actually has, it is established that he actually has family. Maybe he's another nowhere resident who has been able to escape the invasion, and now wants to help Courage, actually free his city. Why these two and not anyone else? Well, I don't know. I think they are the best options available. And that was it. That was the and that was my suggestion for how I would design, for how I would sketch out, so to speak, for my premise of a Courage the Cowardly Dog video game. And what looks like will be the shortest video I've made, I've made for Courage the Cowardly Dog Month 2. I might do a Courage the Cowardly Dog Month 3. I'll think about it. Anyway, thank you for your attention. If you've enjoyed this video, then please like it, and maybe also share it wherever you think other people will also like the video. If you have anything you'd like to add, either to the idea or to my execution of it, that's what the comment section is for. And if you want to see when my next video gets released, well then please subscribe, and ideally also ring the bell or do whatever else YouTube will ask of you in order to keep you notified. I also have a main channel where I talk about book-related and literature topics, a link to which you can find in the description down below, right past my social media links, which I also suggest you check out should you choose to. Additionally, you have the option of supporting me on Patreon, where depending on the level at which you pledge, you'll be able to receive various perks, such as early access to my videos and scripts, both for this channel and the aforementioned main one. Until next time, I have been the One Take Man.